Hi, it's Heather from 7 Seas Aquatics, and welcome back to my Coral Corner. In today's video, we're going to be going over a brief guide for coral placements in your reef tank. Have you ever gotten home with your new piece of coral and then you realize that you forgot to ask where it prefers to be in the tank? Or maybe you have a couple pieces on that frag rack that need to be placed? Well, here's some tips for where to put most of those commonly kept corals. Some of my key points today are going to be lighting, flow, compatibility, and space required to grow. Generally speaking, soft corals and LPS do really well on the mid to lower thirds of the reef, where SPS thrive on the top tiers of the reef, where they're exposed to more intense lighting and flow. Now, there are a ton of corals within those categories, so I'm going to go over a couple of them with you specifically. Soft corals like mushrooms and leather prefer a moderate to low light, and they also like the indirect flow, that way they can expand into the water. Keep in mind, some soft corals like zoanthids can actually outcompete other corals and really take over a rock, but in some cases this may even be desirable if you're building a zoa garden or something like that. While soft corals can handle a variety of conditions, they typically don't do well in direct flow. And just an FYI, some soft corals are capable of planular spawning, which means that they can start growing themselves off of just a little bit of a branch, and they can do that in undesirable places of the reef. Some examples of that are Xenia and the daisy chain. Moving on to some LPS, we have Euphyllia. Euphyllia will benefit from a standing wave or randomized wave motion. Most Euphyllia like moderate to low levels of light, although with proper acclimation, higher lighting can be achieved. Euphyllias need a good distance around the coral to prevent neighboring corals from getting stung by those really powerful nemesis at the ends. So for Acropora, they benefit from direct and randomized high intensity flow. They are also the most light-demanding corals in the hobby. With that being said, they want to be kept at the very top spots of the reef. And if you're not sure you're doing SPS yet, you might want to save a couple little spots up there in case you change your mind later. Acropora do need space in between different colonies to ensure that they don't butt into each other and go into warfare. Montipora, while similar to Acropora, may benefit more from being in the middle third of the tank, where the flow is slightly lessened, but the lighting is still just as strong. They actually come in second in light-demanding corals. Cyphastria and other encrusting corals, they need to be given their space so that they continue their growth pattern uninterrupted, or they will invade other colonies. These types of encrusting corals have been known to be kept in under a variety of conditions. Moving on to some big corals like an Acanthophilia, these corals are typically found on the sea floor, and they like to have really low, gentle exchange of the water over them so that they can extend and reach their polyps out. Acanthophilias and other large polyps like that, they don't really require too much light. Scalemia and Trachyphilia are very similar to Acanthophilia when it comes to lighting and flow. They like a gentle exchange, and they do not care much for randomized flow. These large polyps like that gentle water movement so that they can extend all the way onto the substrate. Goniopora. It is known as more of a finicky coral. I've found that this coral prefers to be held at low levels of light and pretty low flow as well. It wants just a gentle swaying motion, and it's also going to need some space between the other corals so that it can extend its long swaying tentacles. Those are all the corals that I'm covering today. Keep in mind that some species will grow a lot faster than others, slower than others, and it's not always predictable. If your coral isn't doing well in a specific spot, you can try to experiment and move it to another location. Keep in mind when you're moving your corals to observe them for at least 30 minutes afterwards for any kind of retraction to the base or other signs of stress. And while many corals are compatible with touching one another, in the long term of the reef, it's best to give every coral a little bit of space to grow when placing them. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more tips.